You're welcome back. So it's time for the interview segment, and this particular one I'm really interested in, and I believe that you will be too when you find out what it's about. In a world where economic challenges are always evolving, the way we think about these problems and approach these issues can make all the difference. Our discussion today will explore how changing our mindset can unlock new opportunities for growth. We will also be discussing the importance of fostering positive attitudes and proactive attitudes towards money. We're talking economic development today, and also how this shift can lead to sustainable growth. But before I give you any more details, here's a backgrounder to get us started.
Our minds are more than mere grey matter. They are the architects of our reality. Our minds is our most valuable asset, shaping our decisions, aspirations, and our very destinies. But what if we could rewire those mental circuits? What if we could break free from the chains of limiting beliefs, scarcity thinking, and self-imposed barriers? Throughout history, we find stories of those who defied odds, weathered failures, and emerged victorious. From Nelson Mandela's resilience to Aliko Dangote's audacity, we witness the undeniable role that mindset shifts play in ensuring success, even in the face of unfavorable circumstances. As a continent, Africa's development journey isn't just about external aid or grand plans. It's increasingly tied to its mindset, the collective heartbeat of its people. While assistance from beyond our borders matters, true progress lies in Africans taking ownership of their development process. It's about embracing agency, rewriting narratives, and fostering a mindset of abundance. On today's episode of Lens on Africa, we will discuss extensively how shifting our mental landscapes can unlock economic empowerment, not just for individuals, but for an entire continent. Stay tuned.
You're welcome back. My guest today is Toks Aruoture. She's a luxury interior designer and founder of the Baby Cut Shop in Chelsea, London. She helps individuals who feel stuck to transform their thinking by exposing limiting beliefs and guiding them towards a mindset of abundance. Toks is a business consultant with over 2 decades of entrepreneurial experience. She also empowers women and young entrepreneurs to unlock their full potentials in business. Welcome to Lens on Africa, Toks.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. All right, so our topic today is mindset shift for economic empowerment. All right, let's start first of all with mindset shift. Well, how would you define that or describe it?
Quite simply, it's a change in the way you think, and it's a change in the perspectives that you have concerning any given situation. So in the case of economic empowerment or the current state of the economy, a mindset shift is required to see things differently.
Okay, so a person is faced with clearly a dire situation, but you're saying that they have to see things differently. How? I mean, it sounds like a lie, you know. This is it, it's black. How and why should I see things differently?
Okay, so first of all, it's not denying your reality. It's accepting that where you stand today is the reality of where you are.
Okay.
It's only through acceptance, funny enough, that you can even begin to start to change your perspective about a situation.
Okay.
So for example, in the 2008 economic downturn, I lost my business, I lost everything. And for many weeks, I would sit crying and thinking about the good old days and wishing that it would come back. And I was waiting. I spent a lot of time waiting for things to reverse back to what it was previously. But it was only when I accepted that this was a new day that I was able to now see things with a different perspective and think, okay, things have changed and I accept that it has changed. What can I do now? Because what we tend to do is hold on to the old and the better, and that prevents us from acquiring anything new knowledge, new perspectives or viewpoints. New opportunities evade us when we are still holding on to the old.
I see. This experience you had in 2008, is that by any chance the reason you became a mind strategist, or is there any other reason?
It absolutely is. So you could say that I fell into it. I had lost everything, and the one thing every business needs is cash.
Yes.
And I didn't have cash. I needed to start a new business because I couldn't sit down waiting for things to revert back to what it used to be. Once I accepted that this was my new reality, I was then faced with a new reality that, okay, well, you need to, I need to start a business, but I need money for that.
Okay.
And I didn't have any. But I went through an experience of building my own website at a time when website building really was rocket science.
Okay.
Built my own website, and I thought, wow, I did that. And wherever the courage and the knowledge and the information came from, there is probably a whole lot more inside of me that I can retrieve.
Okay.
And I began the practice of introspection, and I thought, okay, let's find out what other gems are within me that I'm not even aware of. I began to find other things, even as simple as the ability to communicate well with people, build good relationships. All of those ended up being assets that took the place of cash. And it was in the process I found that, well, I've got these gems, we all do, we all have gifts, but then these gifts are not easily accessible because they are swaddled by limiting beliefs. And then I began the practice of stripping away those beliefs.
Wow. You're going to talk about stripping those beliefs. But let me ask quickly, what roles does self-belief play in achieving, specifically now, economic empowerment? You know, in your case, you said you lost everything. Then you had to make do with what you had, which were gifts, and let me use the word skills that were inherent.
Right.
So what role does self-belief play in one being able to get to the point where they're economically powered up or balanced out?
Right, right. That's a great question. It plays a huge role because I mentioned that the gifts that and the talents and the skills I found were intrinsic. Now, if I don't believe in myself, I wouldn't trust anything that's coming out of me. And many of us are raised to put more value and place more attention on our external environment, on the things that we see, the people that we adore, and we think we give them titles and roles, and we think this person must know what they're talking about. Today we have social media influencers and gurus, and we would use and judge the number of followers and engagement as a means to decide how valuable they are to us, and we tend to believe those people more than we believe us. But I believe that our journeys are uniquely ours, and everything we need for that journey is within us. If you don't believe in yourself, you will trust the opinions of others who have no business on your journey, on your path, and you trust their opinions over yours.
Talking about believing in yourself, sometimes it's hard, especially when a person has faced massive failure or repeated failures. Finding the strength to believe in themselves, looking at all of the evidence that has presented itself, failure after failure after failure, how can a person still believe in themselves? Is this still possible?
It is absolutely possible. The reason why we struggle with it is, especially when you've had repeated failure, is that the experience of failing begins to inform you of its own version of truth. And then you start to believe that this is your truth. And many times we associate our experiences with our personality. And so we go from I have failed to I am a failure. And if you see yourself as a failure, you cannot possibly see yourself as a winner or as one who is or can be successful. And so that's the main thing, is that people tend to really struggle to find the strength because they're looking at the wrong place and because they're believing the wrong things. The minute you're able to break that lie, and I call it unbelieving the lie, and instead replace it with the truth of who you are, based on your dreams, your personality, and if you're a religious person, then who God says you are. The minute you're able to do that, you then make room for a new truth to lay at the floor of your mind, and then that's where your new thoughts start to grow from, and you gain strength from that.
All right, there's something very strong, which is upbringing, which is the environment that plays a massive role in a person, especially for us in this part of the world, in Africa. You know, we're faced with a lot of challenges.
Yes.
And as a result, a lot of people have grown up, you know, in some very tough situations. And this is shown in the way that they think.
Right.
So is it possible for a person, despite the environment that they grew up in or the upbringing they had, is it possible to still conquer these and still succeed, especially when it has to do with money?
Absolutely. It's possible. You see, the focus a lot of times, it tends to be on money, and the focus is always on the external.
Okay.
If you are going to change what's happening on the outside, which includes your state of finances, you have to start within.
Okay.
So if we take away the subject of money from the equation and begin to get comfortable with knowing who you are as a person, begin the practice of self-reflection, introspection, you will find that there are, you mentioned limiting beliefs earlier, you'll find that there are limiting beliefs that hinder the right information or the right knowledge from reaching you.
Right.
And even if you do have access to the right knowledge, which, you know, in social media and the internet, knowledge is free, you will struggle to believe it because you have believed lies instead. And so you've got to find out what's stopping me from believing what's true. What's stopping me, despite all of this information I've gathered, what's stopping it from making a difference in my life? And a lot of times it's us. So I'll give you an example. I was lucky to have been raised by amazing parents who were very celebratory of their children. And it wasn't until my adult years I realized that I struggled to function when I wasn't being celebrated.
Oh,
and that became a limiting belief for me.
Oh.
So I may be doing something great, I may have achieved a lot, but until I got the celebration and recognition from people, I discounted it. So I only found that out because I was going through some self-reflection and asking some very difficult questions. Because this self-reflection is difficult if you're being authentic and if you're being true to yourself. You know, you face some deep truths about yourself that are uncomfortable, but you've got to be prepared to go through that discomfort if you're going to enact any form of change.
Wow. That's something, you know, one would have thought, oh, that's such a great thing to be celebrated by your parents. But it turns out it could actually be a problem if you don't, you know, overcome it. The need for applause every time you achieve something.
And everybody's different. Same, I have brothers who were not affected in the same way that I am. Course, so my personality came into being, and my personality seems to clash with that whole way of being raised, which I am grateful for it. There are many more benefits to it in my life but that was one negative that I picked up for me.
All right, there's something that entrepreneurs face, especially those of us in this part of the world in Africa, and that is imposter syndrome.
Yes.
So a person achieves a feat after feat after feat, but then they begin to compare themselves with their global counterparts in different parts of the world and say, oh, if this person has done this, that means what I've done is not good enough or not big enough. Meanwhile, before encountering that information,
they were fine.
They were fine. Let's talk about imposter syndrome.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Imposter syndrome is that belief that you are not responsible for the success that you have enjoyed, or like you said, the achievements. You know, you don't recognize it. You don't count it as worth anything, and statistics have shown that it is more common in women than in men, and there are reports that have said that statistic is not true, so I'm not quite sure which it is. But imposter syndrome can hinder us in such ways that, you know, can literally topple our goals, topple our vision, topple our businesses, because we're constantly in a state of denial about what we're capable of doing. And before long, you wouldn't even bother making any attempts because you're going to think, well, it's not going to win anymore. And you mentioned comparison, you know, that it comes into the picture when you start comparing yourself with other people. What's so interesting is that nobody does what you do like you do. Like there really is no human being on earth that can replicate your craft exactly like you do, because it's not just about the physical part of doing something.
Right.
It's about your soul being infused into the thing, and nobody else. Just like we all have unique fingerprints and dentation. It's not possible for someone else to do things the way you do. So it's quite misleading when people look at other people, even in their own industry, and say, well, they're doing really well and they're doing it that way. I'm not doing it as well.
Wow. Okay, that rings true. Now, can you share a success story where, particularly, now you've shared yours, but you know, I mean, as a coach, as a mindset strategist, have you come across somebody who these practices or exercises literally got them out of the rut and into onto a path of success?
Yeah, absolutely. Funny enough, just yesterday, somebody was telling me about changes that they made in their business, and this was about a year ago that I had worked with them. It was a very brief period, and you know, she said to me, you know, this thing that you told me, I began the practice of journaling. I champion journaling a lot because it's one way that you expose your thoughts and you find out what's really going on inside you. And she started the practice of journaling and discovered so many mental blocks that she had. Some of it had to do with the relationship with her mother. Even though we were working on the business, but the practice exposed other areas of her life, a relationship with her mother, a relationship with herself, and a relationship with money. And what that did for her was, on a personal front, healed that relationship. You know, they have a much healthier relationship today, all because she began the practice of journaling and discovered limiting beliefs, which she started to address one after the other.
Let's be honest, right? In this part of the world, in Africa, I'm always making reference to Africa. I mean, this is lens on Africa. There's something that comes with financial success. There's a pride. There's that acknowledgement, celebration that comes with it, and as a result, everybody desires it.
Right.
Everybody desires to have some level of financial affluence, or you know, be comfortable at the end of the day. So, how much does a mindset shift actually matter? How much does it really matter in the pursuit of economic empowerment? I mean, after all, I could just go get a job, get paid, I have money. Learn a skill, start a business, I have money.
Yeah.
How much of an impact could it possibly have?
A great question. A lot of people think that money makes them happy.
Right.
But it's the other way around.
Okay.
Happiness makes you money. When you're at peace with yourself and you are satisfied and you are just, you know, in tune with your own life, the money comes as a side effect, if you like, of that.
Could you break that down a little bit more? Because I've been happy lately. Yeah.
That's great. So when we have moments in our lives when we are seeking money and we're chasing money for the sake of it, the fact that money is not even a living entity is an aside. It's one of the reasons why it cannot really bring you joy. It might change your circumstances, but you've got to still live with yourself. If you're living with a mindset that is warped, or you're living with thoughts and emotions that put your mood down, you know, you're unhappy for whatever reason. It could be in your personal life, which is why with that lady, her personal life impacted the rest of her life, impacted her business as well.
Okay.
If you're unhappy in your personal life, if you are dissatisfied in any way with life, you can have all the money in the world, but that's not going to make you happy. Because joy is not found in material things, and joy is an intrinsic practice. It's not found from the outside. Circumstances are best seen as neutral, as in they are neither good nor bad. Circumstances just are. And if you can look at your circumstances as, this is neutral, this is the ground on which I stand, this is the opportunity I have today. Now let me look around and within me, what do I have that I can use to navigate, you know, the states that I'm in? What do I have and what can I use to come out of, you know, the lack that I'm in, if you're suffering financially, and get myself into a more abundant place.
All right. Now, we know that there is something very let me use the word endemic in this part of the world, where we're looking for aid, not just government, individuals, business people.
Right.
Everyone's looking for some kind of training where they're going to give you money or grants and things like that. Is that a problem to have that mindset where we're waiting for someone to come save us? What do you think about that mindset? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's disempowering if that is your only hope. I don't think there's anything wrong with seeking grants and government assistance, but if that is all you're seeking and you're not even trying any other way to build your business, for example, you're going to be very limited because even the funds that you receive when you get in aids and grants and so on, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it should be going towards growing the business and not managing the business.
All right.
It shouldn't be a source of, that should not be your source of income. That should be your marketing pot, if you like, to help elevate the business so that it can then, you know, produce. There's a saying that says you can teach a man, you can feed, if you feed a man, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, then you feed him for life. And what aid does, where people are reliant only on aid, is that they are being fed just for the day. Whereas if they learn a skill, if they invest money in education, in, you know, entrepreneurial education, if they invest in mentorship a lot of times is free because many successful business people love to give their knowledge away for free. Then they end up doing much better.
Okay. All right. So we're going to be wrapping it up with you giving us practical steps. You mentioned journaling earlier. You mentioned introspection. Can you just give us like maybe 4, 5? Something we could just pick and start immediately.
Absolutely. Yes. So I mentioned mentoring. Finding a mentor is I've used mentors, and been one of the most pivotal times in my business was when I engaged the services of a mentor. And what a mentor is somebody who has gone before you. Ideally, it would be great if they were in your industry, because then you can also use their connections and they know the exact pitfalls. The idea is not for them to teach you. That's what education is for. The idea is for them to show you shortcuts and pitfalls, shortcuts you can take and pitfalls you can avoid. So that's one. Education is another one. People underestimate education in entrepreneurship, and I've had to recently sign myself up to some leadership courses because I found there were some gaps in the way that I was leading my team, and I just thought being a good person was enough, and I'm a good person, I can be a good leader, but it didn't turn out that way. So having to recognize what your gaps are and being trained for them. Yeah, journaling is one. I would touch again on journaling because it's very important. There's a saying we have in business that you can't work on a business while you're in the business. You've got to take yourself away, have a bird's eye view, and then you can see better the pitfalls, the obstacles that stand in the path, and the opportunities. And journaling is one way that you can do that, both for your personal life and for your business life.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you so much, Toks. In fact, this was more like a free mentoring session or some kind of life coach moment. I've been speaking with Toks Aruoture, luxury interior designer, founder of the Baby Cut Shop in Chelsea, London. She's also a business coach as well, and is particular about helping women and young entrepreneurs to get out of the, you know, being stuck in their minds and flourish in their businesses. Thank you once again, Toks, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.